This is the WINOL Radio News Update. In the headlines today, the residents have moved out, but 3 years on, there is still no sign of new homes here. Who's to blame? New Forest ponies are at risk from a late fall of acorns, but pigs are the unlikely heroes that could save them. And in sport, Basingstoke Bisons surge to the top of the league with a smashing win. 3 years since it was promised, there is still no sign of work starting on a major housing project in Southampton, and the delay has now sparked a bitter political row. Ross Perkins has been investigating.
It's been called one of the most deprived communities in Southampton, but for the residents of Townhill Park, help doesn't look like coming anytime soon.
The Townhill Park estate has stood here in Southampton since the mid-1960s. However, in much more recent times, it's become a battleground between a Labour councillor and a Conservative one. Since 2012, plans for a mass reconstruction of the area have been drawn up, with 675 new homes, several shops and a new village green all on the agenda. But amid allegations the project is unaffordable, and with some residents already moved out of their homes, the future of the project is on the slide.
Jeremy Moulton, leader of the Conservative group, is dismayed at Housing and Sustainability Councillor Warwick Payne for changing the Conservatives' funding model for Townhill Park.
We have had, I forget how many meetings, where we've put the same questions to him. You don't have enough money, so you need to have a different funding mechanism. The numbers are absolutely stark. The council has never had enough money, so it's never been a fully funded scheme. Because even if there was enough money to do Townhill Park, you would blow all the budget over the next few decades and you wouldn't be able to replicate this across the city. But all I know is that he's failed dramatically, and I just wish he'd move aside and let us get on and finish the job that we started.
Understandably, the man in charge of the project is none too happy with Moulton's comments. Warwick Payne insists demolition and building work will take place in 2016, and has hit back at Moulton.
We can move the Townhill Park scheme forward, and ironically enough, the Conservative way of delivering Townhill Park, which they set out in 2012, was actually pronounced by the finance officer, so neutrals at the councils, as being unaffordable at the end of 2014. So had they actually been in charge, their model would have actually fallen flat on its face. The Conservatives have tried to make this a political football, and I don't believe there's any public appetite for it to be a political football. We should all be working together to actually get this estate redeveloped, and it's remarkable how many things that Labour and Conservatives agree on, and it's almost as if the Conservatives are desperately struggling to find something to disagree with us on this scheme over so that they can have a fight.
With both sides deflecting the blame on each other, Townhill Park is certainly caught in the crossfire. One thing's for sure, it's going to take a long time before any real significant investment is to be made around these parts. Ross Perkins, Winchester News Online, Southampton.
This year's warm autumn weather has brought a late fall of acorns to the New Forest. This is causing a serious problem because the acorns are poisonous for the New Forest ponies. So it's been decided to bring in the pigs. Each year they're allowed to roam the forest for a limited time and eat the acorns, in an ancient tradition known as pannage. Usually that's finished by now, but this year the season has been extended. Alice Wheatley reports.
Pigs are going to be able to roam the New Forest until just 5 days before Christmas. This is due to an extension on the traditional pannage season that allows locals' pigs into the forest to eat acorns which are harmful to other animals. The season, which usually lasts 60 days, has been extended this year due to unusual circumstances. Earlier on, I spoke to Head Agaster Jonathan Gorelli.
Last year, very few acorns around. This year, a bumper crop, which is great news for the pigs. Bad news, unfortunately, for our other stock that grazes on the forest, so the ponies, the cattle and the donkeys. If they eat too many acorns, the acorns can be toxic to them. They can become very lethargic. You will see them perhaps staggering if you catch them early enough, but invariably, by the time we find them, they're dead.
However, there has been another issue with the season. Some farmers have been unwilling to release their pigs due to another threat. Earlier I spoke to Roy Hunt, a local farmer.
We get a lot of trouble with dogs, We had a dog bite one of ours last year, that's why I haven't bothered this year. Bit right at the back end, the pig was all bit out. And people haven't got no respect with their dogs and pigs, and they moan all the time because we got pigs on the forest now. They don't knock them outside their gates and all this, and this is why a lot of people won't turn them out.
With the pannage season extended for this year, horses like this one will be safe from harmful acorns. Alice Wheatley, Winchester News Online, the New Forest.
A walk-in health centre in Southampton has closed despite a 5-year campaign by residents and protest groups. The doors are now closed, but campaigners are determined this shouldn't be the end of their fight. They want to get the centre reopened. Rachel Gunter is in Southampton with the story.
The Bitton Walk-in Health Centre closed its doors on Saturday after a long 5-year fight to keep it open.
Yeah.
Those part of the campaign held a meeting last night to discuss what can be done next. Last week, members of the trade union Socialist Coalition went to see Royston Smith about the issue, who then raised his concerns with Labour councillor Simon Letts. Councillor Letts has since written a letter to Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt, but is waiting a response.
I have written to Jeremy Hunt questioning the decision and the financing behind it. And we await a reply, of course, because he's very busy, and I imagine some civil servant will, in time, find a few moments to send me a reply. We do want to see the government say if they are committed to a 7-day NHS, we need to see some evidence for that in terms of funding coming to the city to support it.
But for these locals, it's a case of too little, too late.
If the Labour Council, if Royston Smith had used their authority to resolutely back the local people, then the walk-in centre would still be open, it would not be closed.
Obviously what's required now is a huge campaign to force the government to provide the resources and the funding, not just for the walk-in, but for all the services that have been listed tonight. You know, there's a desperate need for housing, there's a desperate need for youth services in the city, care for the elderly. So this is just the tip of the iceberg, really.
The fight from these campaigners is far from over. With anticipation of other services set to be slashed, it seems the walk-in centre won't be the end of this story. Rachel Gunter, Winchester News Online, Southampton.
Researchers have found that suicide rates have dropped by 2% last year compared to 2013, but there is still a large concern about suicides amongst men. Afzal Sumra joins me now to discuss what's going on.
More than 40% of men aged below 45 have considered suicide, according to research by a male suicide prevention charity. The campaign against living miserably has revealed that over 4,500 men of all ages took their own lives last year. This is the equivalent of more than 12 deaths per day, and it accounts for just over 75% of the total amount of suicides in 2014. And men aged between 40 to 44 are one of the biggest concerns, as they accumulated over 550 suicides last year. This is the second highest age group in the UK. 35 to 39-year-olds are slightly lower, with just under 400 suicides.
So what's the charity suggesting that we do about this?
The charity has really put across to people that anyone who's had suicidal thoughts haven't talked to friends or family, and they're urging people to come forward and talk about these issues and really get them out in the open to try and solve these issues.
The Conservatives have been in power for 6 months now and are starting to implement their promises from the general election. One of these promises is to raise the national living wage. Our politics correspondent Hattie Waldron joins me in the studio now. So what exactly is the living wage, Hattie?
So the national living wage is the same as the minimum wage. Labour brought in the minimum wage when they were in power, but obviously when the Conservatives have come in, they haven't changed it, so they've just changed the name.
So the Conservatives are going to raise this national living wage in April, but this might not be as positive as we might think.
Well, no, not really. Outside of London, the living wage, which is the cost of living per hour, has increased by 40p to £8.25, but the national living wage is only increasing to £7.20 an hour for over 25-year-olds.
So what does this mean for people who are struggling as it is on the minimum wage?
Well, I think the Conservatives are bringing in lots of cuts anyway, which they say we need to go through to get our economy back again. But so they will be struggling to begin with, but they are raising by 2020 the minimum wage will be raised to £9 an hour. So it will be above the living wage then anyway.
But it's not all doom and gloom because employers have their say as well, don't they?
Yeah, more than 2,000 businesses have voluntarily raised their minimum wage anyway to keep in track with the living wage. So they're kind of ignoring the government in a way to help their employees.
So for more on that, visit our website at winol.co.uk, where Hattie talks to political expert Max Stafford. A new report has outlined problems at Winchester Prison, expressing issues with lack of staffing as well as an increased gang violence and use of legal highs. There has been an improvement in the security and education teams, but the monitoring board believes there are still concerns. According to Urban Myth, you are never more than 10 feet away from a rat, and that's certainly the case for some Winchester residents. For months, an apartment block in Winchester has been infested with rats, but it isn't the only place the rodents have been spotted. Rat traps have appeared all over the city, especially by the train station, but whether this is enough is yet to be seen. New housing laws set to be introduced around the country are aimed at providing new starter homes with lower prices. The government is also planning to increase the rent of social tenants who earn over £30,000 a year, but Winchester City Council is not so sure and aims to discuss it in depth this week. It's been called one of the safest counties in the UK, but in the last couple of years the number of road casualties in Hampshire has increased. The county's police are hoping to put a stop to speeding drivers by installing new high-tech speed cameras across Hampshire. Miriam Nautsbakken has the story.
Nikki Steele is lucky to be alive. She was thrown from her horse when it was startled by a motorbike. She feels that if there had been a speed camera present, it might not have happened.
I was glad I was actually alive because the horse did come down and crushed my back. The motorcyclist, after I'd gone over backwards, I just heard him going off into the distance. And there was no witnesses, there was nobody, just me. I was lucky.
The new digital cameras will upload the footage directly to police servers. They're easier to maintain and won't force police staff to travel back and forth to change film reels. Road safety charity Break welcomes the innovation but says more needs to be done.
We also think that there should be more investment in traffic police on the ground. So where resources are freed up through new technologies such as this, we also want to see investment in traffic police out there, making sure that they're catching reckless and dangerous driving and prosecuting people who are drink driving or committing other offences to make sure that the roads are safe.
The cameras will be updated over the next 2 years. Miriam Nautsbakken, Winchester News Online.
And now for the latest in sport with Intezar Ali.
Basingstoke Bison are doing great and they're climbing the table in their ice hockey league. Saturday they won 4-1 against Manchester Phoenix. It was a great win and you can watch all the highlights on winol.co.uk. Basingstoke are playing Cambridge United in the first round of the FA Cup. We have big hopes for them to win and we'll follow them and update you on how it went. Please check out WINOL next week with the updates. That's all from sports. Back to you, Lauren.
And now for a catch-up of this week's features with Ryan McAndrew. So Ryan, what's going on?
Well, as the winter nights are drawing in and ticket sales for cinemas are increasing, Ewan Lyle, our film writer, has got the perfect new releases for you to go and watch in the cinema on a dark winter's evening. Now, also, as it is fireworks night coming up tomorrow, which is very exciting, our food writer Rebecca Herbert has got 3 treats for you to eat whilst you are watching a fireworks display or gathered round a lovely bonfire. So she's got a s'more, a lovely toffee apple and an edible sparkler.
An edible sparkler?
Yes, so it's a breadstick, the tip of it is covered in chocolate, dipped in a bit of hundreds of thousands, and it looks like a little sparkler, which is quite sweet.
Sounds lovely.
Does sound lovely.
Have you got anything else for us this week?
Yes, so also on the back of the Panage story that was reported on by Alice Wheatley in the Bulletin, we've sent out Alice Rose to the New Forest, and she's got 5 things that you didn't know about the National Park, the New Forest, which is very nice. Lots of ponies.
Sounds lovely. Well, thank you very much for that, Ryan.
No worries.
See you next week.
See you next week.
That's all from WINOL Radio, but for more award-winning news, features and sport, go to winol.co.uk. Goodbye.